Hello, hey. Um, I have wanted something for about 2 years, and I'm finally getting a little bit of wish fulfillment here. Uh, that's my cold open. Hi, my name is Cody C. Engdahl. This is Book Talk with me, Cody C. Engdahl, and I am the who am I? I'm an author of 5 novels and 2 nonfiction books. You can get them all on Amazon, or if you contact me directly, I have a bunch in my trunk, and I can send you um, uh, signed copy with just a reasonable amount for postage in the U.S. If you live outside the U.S., that's a little harder. It can be very expensive shipping outside the United States. But anyway, let's get on with the show. So I am going to be on rock paper swords. And what is rock paper swords? Well, let me pull it up here because who wants to just look at me? Rock paper swords is a podcast, and it is hosted by 2 best-selling authors. You can see cartoon versions of them there. It's let's see here. That's Stephen A. Mackay and Matthew Harvey. Both of them are live in the United Kingdom. Stephen is in Scotland, and Matthew Harvey, I think, lives in Northern England. And these guys both are big writers. They are published through a big commercial publishers. They have multiple titles out. They do very well. They write full time, support families with it, and they're like the best of friends. And so they started a podcast. Now I've known them for a while. I think it's my association with them starts all the way back with my very first book, Rampage on the River. And I had the title or the cover done by another author named Stephanie Ling Churchill, or yeah, Stephanie Ling, or is it Stephanie Churchill Ling? I think her author name is Stephanie Churchill. I should have written that down before I started this, but she writes like historical fantasy, and she and I became friends through a Facebook group, and she did the first 2 covers of my first 2 covers. So she did Rampage on the River and The Perils of Perryville. And I think when she got done with Rampage on the River, she also shared that because she was very proud of her work, and she should be. And Matthew Harvey was friends with her and saw that, and he shared it. And I was stunned because Matthew Harvey is a very well known author in the historical fiction world. And then I think through following him, I got to know Stephen A. Mackay, who is also very well known and very popular author. Both of them write mostly Viking era stuff in Anglo-Saxon, kind of like that period. They call it the sub-Roman period or the pre-Norman invasion. It's basically that period in the United Kingdom, or in Britain, I guess, because it's not a United Kingdom till I think 1709 with Queen Anne, when the was signed, somewhere around there. But Britain is still one big island that has 3 nations that which create the country thereof. I don't know how to describe, because there's what is a nation and a country. We can get in the weeds with that very much, but there's 3 kingdoms: Wales, Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland, of course, over on Irish Island, all make up the United Kingdom. And then you could throw in like the Isle of Man, and I don't know how many of the islands have their own kind of flags and designation of a uh, nation or onto itself. But anyway, I'm getting way off here. So I had been friends with them, Facebook friends with them, interacting with social media, and I've read several of their books. I've read several of Stephen A. Mackay's books. I just got done reading an advanced copy of Matthew Harvey's latest book, it's Dark Frontier. That's coming out July 4th, and I just wrote up a review. And actually, if you check my blog, I have reviews. yeah, I don't know when I started putting all my reviews on my blogs, but I have written reviews for both Stephen A. McKay and or Mackay, um, and Matthew Harvey's um, novels. So anyway, almost exactly 2 years ago, they started a podcast called Rock Paper Swords, and when I first heard it being announced, I was very excited about it because it was basically two guys who are successful writers in the genre that I'm writing in, coming together and writing or I'm sorry, hosting at that time it was a weekly. It's gone to every 2 weeks now, but a podcast that was all about um, historical fiction, action adventure, both or not both, but in books, films, TV, video games, and all that kind of stuff. And they've had a lot of really big authors on there. One of which was Bernard Cornwell. Which, if you don't know Bernard Cornwell, imagine like the Stephen King of historical fiction. That's Bernard Cornwell. I like to call him Papa Bernie because a lot of us who are historical fiction writers started off reading Bernard Cornwell and loving him and wanting to be like him and trying to emulate a lot of the things that he does in our own work. And I am one. I'm one of many. But he was on the show when he was on that show, on that podcast. I mean, where else do you go from there? That's the top of the mountain as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I wanted to be on that show because I'm like, oh man, I would love to be on that show. And not even, I mean, I don't know what is the benefit in the end. I don't know if that means more book sales. I will say that I have bought books from authors that have been on that show because I've listened to them and liked them and said, hey, that's a guy that I would like to get to know, a guy I'd like to, or a guy or gal, or a person that I would like to read their books. And so I've in fact, I'm reading one right now from, God, I get names wrong. It's Bale. Is it Ethan Bale? Ethan Bale. Yeah. The Hawker, because I know there's a pen name for him. It's the, I have to look this up real quick. I got it right here. It's, sorry, Mr. Bale, if I got, yeah, Ethan Bale. I'm reading Hawker and the King's Jewel, which I'm really excited about. It takes place at the end of the War of the Roses and moves on to Venice. There's a little bit of there seems to be a bit of what do you call it? Not a MacGuffin. Yeah, MacGuffin. He's got a jewel that may or may not be cursed that he's returning to Venice after the conclusion of the War of the Roses. So I'm reading that now. I think I'm like in the third chapter. I'm 10% into the book, which is because I'm reading on Kindle. And Kindles, you can do pages on Kindles, but I like to look at percentage instead because it gives me a sense of like, especially when I'm looking at how people structure their narratives. And I'm like, oh, okay, at this, at this percentage into the book, we're getting the inciting incident, or whatever the terms are for structure. So anyway, this podcast has been going on for about 2 years, and I really wanted to be on it, but it was one of those things where I didn't want to ask because I felt like asking would put them in a difficult or an uncomfortable position because they have had really, I mean, asking to be on the same show as Bernard Cornwell, and I know that they shoot big when it comes to guests. So I made it kind of like a quiet, personal goal is to earn my way onto that show, and so the way it went down is and by the way, I've been on several podcasts, and you can look them up too, and I'm very happy with my appearances. So I've been on, I think the very first podcast that I was ever a guest on was Untold Civil War, and with Paul. Um, and I was on there. I was on there twice. I did a show about the my first book, which is Rampage on the River, and then he had me back on like maybe 2 years later, and I did one about uh, Civil War generals in the Mexican War. I'm really very proud of that episode, by the way. So if you check out Paul Hosa's Untold Civil War, you can find that. It's the one about the Mexican War. Very happy with that performance. I've been on Books 101 with Daniel Lucas many times. Daniel does that show like weekly, and I've been on there, I think, at least 7 times, because he's had me on for every single book I've ever written. And so we get to talk about those books and things like that. I've been on Darren Rawlings, American Civil War history, American Civil War and UK history. Very interesting combination there. Darren Rawlings is a reenactor. He lives in, I think he lives in London or in the suburbs of London, because I know that he's on the board for the London American Civil War Roundtable. And he had me on there. He was just kind of interested more in just, instead of having me come on and talk about a topic, he wanted to talk about like what I do as an author. And he was very interested in what I call guerrilla book marketing. I think a lot of people get a kick out of that, where I've done busking for book sales, where, if you don't know about me, I'm a fiddle player. And so I've gone on there, and I've gone out, like I've been on the streets of Gettysburg with my little table of my books and my fiddle. Trying to sell books. So he got a kick out of that. So he wanted to just talk to me about all that, about my book marketing and my writing. I've been on The Commander's Voice. That's a great show. That was that's just anything military. I am a veteran myself with the 101st Air Assault Division, and we had a nice talk there. And I'm trying to think of what I know. I've been on quite a few shows. So I've been on Untold Civil War. I've been on American Civil War and UK history. I've been on Books 101. I've been on The Commander's Voice. And now I've been on Rock, Paper, Swords. So I really wanted to get on there. And like I said, I didn't want to ask, because I didn't want to put them in a difficult position of saying, well, maybe, sell a few more books or whatever. But it started with a few months back or weeks back. I can't keep track of time anymore. I was contacted by a literary agent through LinkedIn, and I looked it up, because you get a lot of scams. You get a lot of you got a lot of marketers and things like that. And I looked it up, and I found out that she was absolutely legit. She had a track record and everything, and I was like, okay. I need to know what to expect. And so I reached out to Matthew Harvey, and I said, hey, I got contacted by a literary agent. This is who it is. This is the name of her company, her agency. And, what should I expect? What does a decent contract look like? And Matthew, who is just one of the nicest guys ever, got back to me very quickly and said, well, let's talk. Let's talk on Zoom tomorrow. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so we got on a Zoom call together, and, he listened to my story and had some very good insight. And long story short, what happened with that agent was, she wanted to know if I had anything new. So they don't want anything that's been published already or that's part of a existing series. Because I offered my last book, because I think this was before it came out, before The Prussian Prince came out. I told her about that, and she said, we had a nice conversation, she and I, and she said, well, let's keep me in mind. And if you start a new series or if you have a standalone book, pitch it to me, and I'll see if I want to pick it up or not. So it's nice to know that that's in my pocket. I don't know if I'm going to do that anytime soon. I wouldn't mind going with the traditional route, which is getting an agent and then having an agent find you a publisher and all that. But I'm very happy with the way things are going as far as just being an independent, and I'm kind of committed um to my series, so I'm not actively looking for that. But if someone called me up, if Simon and Schuster called me up and said, "We want you to pitch a couple ideas for us," and then if we like them, we'll then I would definitely do it. So if someone came to me and said, "Yeah, we're interested in you. What can you do for us?" Yeah, I'd make a go at it. But until that happens, I'm quite happy with just going along my own path. So anyway, Matthew helped me with that, and he also helped me with. Um, it came time for me to start an email list. And by the way, if you haven't already, please sign up for my email. Let's do a quick commercial here. Please sign up for my email list. It's in the description below. You can if you sign up for that, basically I'm not going to spam you. I'm just going to let you know when I have a new release coming out, when I have specials. All my novels, the Kindle versions, are at some point 99 cents or 99 pence in the UK every 90 days when the contract renews. And then the two nonfiction books, the one on slavery and the war, and the other one's on writing, those will be free for 5 days worldwide every 90 days. So I will let you know through my email list. So the link is down below. You click on the link. You put in your email. I don't sell that to anybody. It's just for me to keep you up to date with what is going on. Also, so I'm going to be on the Rock Paper Swords podcast. I have put links not only to subscribe to the podcast, so you can hear the podcast when it comes live, but they also have a YouTube channel, and we'll get into that in a minute. But they also have so when they do a podcast, not only does it go out through like iTunes podcast and Spotify and all that, but you can also listen to it on YouTube. And I think one of the things they started doing recently is they do two versions on YouTube. They do one where it's just like a billboard. There's no video. There's just the billboard for the show, and another one where they actually do show the video. So you can subscribe to their channel there. And while you're subscribing to YouTube channels, please give me a subscription. So you can, they say, smash that like button, hit the bell for subscribe. I don't know how they usually say it a lot more succinctly than I do. I'm not speaking very well today. I'm very sorry about that. So anyway, after Matthew and I spoke a few times, and I got some advice, and I try not to overburden him with it, but he's been very forthcoming with that help. About a day or two later, and I think it's probably because he went back to his partner Stephen, and they probably talked about it. But he came back and he said, "Would you like to be on our show?" I'm like, "Yes, 1,000 times. Yes, I would like to be on your show." So he was like, "Great," and we set a date, and I was very excited about it. I will tell you this: one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to go out and start telling everybody that I'm going to be on Rock Paper Swords, because just in case something happens and it didn't work out, or whatever, I don't like to promise until I know I can deliver. So I waited until we did the show. In the meantime, one of the things about them is not only are they authors, but they're musicians. So Matthew is a singer, a very good singer with a very good rock and roll voice. He's been in at least one band, but he's been band performing in pubs, I assume. And Stephen A. Mackay, is a basically a heavy metal guitarist, bass player, and I don't know if he's doing the drums himself or he's using a drum machine, but he also records things. And so they have their own. They have a recording of their. In fact, let's do this. They have a recording of their. Uh, they created their own theme song, and they wrote it themselves. And Matthew does the vocals, and Steven does the does all the instruments. Let's see here. Okay, I'm trying to think of what's the easiest one. So here's their trailer. I think it's on the trailer, so I'm going to play this for you because you'll hear the theme song here. This is back in June 22 of 2022, so almost 2 years. So here we go. All right.
Hello, my name is Matthew Harvey.
My name is Stephen A. Mackay.
And together we are the hosts of Rock, Paper, Swords, the historical action and adventure podcast. Every fortnight we will be speaking to you about all things historical and anything that falls under the banner of action and adventure in books, film, TV and games. And we'll even talk to you about some rock music sometimes too. First episode is on the 1st of July. Don't miss it. We hope to see you then.
I think I can probably play for you the actual. Let me do this. By the way, so if you want to sign up, like I said.
Hello, my name is Matthew Harvey.
My name is Stephen A. Mackay.
And together we are the hosts of Rock, Paper, Swords.
Anyways, there we go. So I'm going to come back here. I'll take this off, and then I'm going to stop sharing screen, and then share screen again. And let's look at this. All right. Okay. And I'll make sure I'm still here. Yes, I am. Okay. So this is, so that's one place you can go to sign up for the podcast. So if you listen to podcasts, wherever, whether it's iTunes or Spotify or somewhere else, that's where you can sign up for it on that page. That's in the description below. But they also run it as a YouTube page, and so this is the YouTube page. And see what I mean? Like you can see here, like one of their. Sometimes they show. Let's see if I can. Yeah, let's go latest. So sometimes, yeah, like on this one, they are actually using the video, but then they do the same episode with no video, where it's just the billboard for the show. But what I want to show you is the theme song, like with the singing. And let's see here if I can find it for you. Okay, here we go. So this is the theme song here. There's a reason why I'm playing you the theme song, by the way. I'm not merely wasting your time. Oh, I should have let that play out. So that's brilliant. You know, that's they knew it was going to be that. Bam. So when I first heard that, I was like, you know, I bet I could do a fiddle version of that. And I was going to try to do that as to kind of nudge my way onto the show. And then they had, I can't remember who it was, but one of their guests had who was a guitar player, had his own version of it. And I'm like, oh, someone beat me to the punch, you know. So there was another guest, he did it, and then they had another guest, he and his wife did like an acoustic version where they sang in harmony. It was really neat. So I was like, okay, if I ever get on the show, I'm going to do my own version as well. And so when they invited me on, I still wasn't admitting that I was going to be on the show publicly because, like I said, in case something happened and I didn't actually make it on, I wanted to keep it a secret. So I listened to that version, and of course, they have drums, bass, guitar, singing, and I think it's double tracked with the guitar. So you have a rhythm guitar and you have a lead guitar on top of it at some point. And then I think also Harvey's voice is maybe doubled or double tracked as well. There's some harmony in there. So you take a tune like that and you've got multiple instruments playing it. And how do you take that and boil it down to a single fiddle? And to have all those elements, that rhythm element, the lead guitar element, and the melody that's in the voice. So what I did is I came up with my own version. I practiced it, and then about a week out before my interview, I put it out there. I didn't say I was going to be on the show. I just I made a little joke, and I added Stephen and Matthew, and here's what that looks like. So I'm gonna remove this, and then I'm gonna bring up share. Okay, here we go. And of course, me being a complete jackass, I had my Civil War captain's jacket and my Austro-Prussian War pickle hub. And so this is me doing the theme song. Let me make sure. All right, here we go. Here's my version of it. If I can find it. All right, here we go. Okay, so that's my version, and you see, like I try to get like the rhythm, I interrupt the melody with reinforcing the rhythm guitar part. I do a little bit of that little lead guitar lick in the beginning of it, and then I go to what Matthew is singing as the melody, but while still reinforcing that chug, that thrash metal chug to it. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I think they got a kick out of it. They asked me to send the audio version, or Stephen, because I think Stephen does the editing. So he asked for the audio version, like an MP3. So I sent that to him. So I think it's gonna be on when the podcast comes out. And by the way, I should have told you, the podcast will probably come out a week from next Friday. I think they put it out on Fridays, Thursdays or Fridays, and they do it. That's right, Lloyd. Heavy metal fiddle. They put it out. By the way, I'm responding to this. I need to. Yeah, Lloyd says metal fiddle. That's right, absolutely. And by the way, I'm a metalhead at heart. I mean, I grew up. Masters of Puppets came out when I was like 15 years old, and I absolutely fell in love. There was about 2 years where like Metallica was my absolute favorite band, and I just loved, and I loved Slayer and MOD, SOD, and of course I've always been a Black Sabbath fan. So metal is one of the various music genres that I'm a big fan of, and that's another thing we have in common is that Stephen and Matthew are both big metal fans too. So anyway, We did, and I'll get into the actual interview, but we did the interview. I was at my father's house because I've been taking care of my dad, and I'll be back down there. He's in the hospital right now recovering from surgery, and then he's going to rehab. And so I used that as an opportunity to get back to Nashville because I need to be able to cut my lawn, and I do some side work to make some money, to have some, money coming in. So I need to like get caught up at that because I don't want to lose that job. But I'll be going back down to Florida as soon as my dad's ready to come home from rehab. So we did the interview from my dad's house, and it went really well. And we'll get into that in a minute. But even in the interview, I said to them, hey, when you guys know, because I didn't want, because as far as I knew, they could have been like, yeah, that interview was terrible. We can't air that. So I didn't want to put him on the spot. Once again, I didn't want to put him on the spot. So I said, as soon as you guys know, if you're going to run this and when, let me know. And like, oh, we're definitely going to be running it. And I said, oh, great. So is it okay if I admit publicly that I'm actually going to be on the show? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And they said, you're probably going to be the next. And I said, great. I mean, they had one that came out and it was a really good one. The last episode, they had a guy from Canelo, which is Steven's publisher. And he is what do they call him? He's got a very specific, he's an editor, but a very commissioning. Yeah, he's a commissioning editor. Well, here, let's go back to this. Stop that. I'm getting a little bit better with operating these live streams. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so I think you can see this. I just always want to make sure. Yeah, the last episode, and Lloyd, you should listen to this episode if you haven't already. Anybody who's a writer, this is a commissioning editor, Kit Neville. And basically what a commissioning editor does is they're the ones who are bringing in new talent, and mostly through submissions and mostly through agents. So they're usually agents are submitting manuscripts to him, and he's reading them and deciding which projects he wants to take on and which ones he doesn't. And so that is definitely, if you want to go the traditional route, it'd be someone like Kit. And so it was really great insight, and he was an interesting guy to listen to. One of the things I really liked about Kit was I thought it was interesting. He loves books, always wanted to be part of the industry, and got his degree in something like that, and became a commissioning editor. Has no real desire to be to write novels himself, and his desire is to be an editor. And I like that idea. And I'm sure a lot of editors are that way, but I think sometimes people think editors are like failed authors, but no, they're the literary world and industry takes more than just authors. Authors are just one part of it. There's editors, there's promoters, there's all sorts of people between the writer and the especially in the traditional world, between the writer and the reader, that make that product really shine. So that's a very interesting, that in itself is a great reason to sign up for their podcast. So anyway, like I said, I asked them if it would be okay if I went ahead and told everybody I was going to be on. They're like, yeah, absolutely. And Steven, I don't know if because sometimes Steven has he's got a sense of humor like I do sometimes, where like I will say ridiculous, or I'll be joking, but I'll say it with a very straight face, and so that so sometimes people don't know if I'm joking. But Steven said, I told him, feel free to edit, because I guess they tell the author, like, hey, if there's anything you want us to edit out, or you don't like that you said this, or you like that you say that, we can edit that out. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy with everything. Just, you guys can edit it down to whatever you want. And Steven was like, I think I'm just going to keep the whole thing intact, which I'm all for, yeah, I say some goofy things in it, but I'm a goofy guy. I'm just not going to hide it from anybody, really. That's who I am. So anyway, the interview. So I had been practicing quite a bit. I drove 12, 13 hours to Florida. First of all, ever since Matthew invited me on the show, every single podcast I've heard from them, I mean, I would be literally like, usually I listen to podcasts when I'm driving. They'll ask an author a question and I'll stop it and then I'll answer it to myself in the car out loud, practicing what it would be like. And of course, like the day of, I wrote down some notes because sometimes I have a hard time pulling up words or details like people's names or whatever when I'm on the spot. So I had it all written down. I kind of practiced through like how I would present things. I mean, one of the things that they say is, I mean, if you listen to the show, they're always asking, what are you watching? What are you listening to? I mean, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? And and do you listen to music while you're writing? And I'm not going to answer those questions right now because I want you to hear that on Rock, Paper, Swords. Also, if you're watching this, I really would like you to subscribe to their channel and at least download that show because I want to show that I bring an audience with me. But by the way, yeah, it went very well. We had, as nervous as I was at first, we had a great time. Both of them are just really personable, nice, funny guys to talk to. The conversation just flowed wonderfully between the three of us. Believe it or not, it wasn't an hour of me just talking about myself like I'm doing here. They asked me some, basic questions about, why I got into writing and some of my processes, but we really just talked a lot about the industry and just writing in general and how things are going. And it was just like three guys with three different perspectives, different slice of that pie and at different places in their careers, just talking about like the differences between independent versus traditional publishing and marketing and all sorts of things. And I mean, it was a really good conversation and we could have gone. In fact, they said they didn't even get through all their questions with me. We could have talked all day. In fact, once we stopped recording, we stayed on for another 45 minutes and I kept worrying that I was like taking up their time. But I kept saying, hey, I know but we had so much to say to each other. And they have said, we'd like to have you back on again at some point. So, we'll see maybe, when what's the book, the French Fiasco, comes out, maybe they'll have me back on for that, when that releases. Wouldn't that be great? Anyway, so I feel like now, your wish fulfilled. I wanted to be on that show. My goal was to do it in a way where I wasn't asking for it, but just kind of making enough noise about myself to kind of did I earn it on there? I don't know. You can ask them. But I think it's a good show. I think it's going to be very entertaining. I'm interested to see both these guys have big readerships. So I don't know if their readers will listen to it and say, this sounds very interesting. I'd like to read some of this man's work. I will say that their subgenre, even though Matthew has, actually both of them, I know Stephen has written a contemporary novella called Have You Seen This? And it's about the onset of AI and social media. And Matthew wrote a Western, which I did a review for. And I think my previous video is my review for his Western, Dark Frontier. And that was another thing that came out of that conversation is I told him how interested I was in reading it because I like fish out of water stories and I like crossover stuff. So Matthew writes predominantly like sword and shield, Anglo-Saxon Viking era novels. And so to see him step out of that and write a Western was very interesting to me. And I wanted to read it, especially because, and Matthew says it himself in the historical note, that, you know, all of these, all these novels, regardless of where you set them, the human stories are always very universal. But especially like if you think about it, like post-Roman Britain, pre-Norman invasion, it's a wild land with warlords and very little rule of law, and it's no different from the Wild West, where you have like big wealthy ranchers that, you know, with hired guns, you know, picking on the little guys. Well, you had the same thing going on in Britain. And so you can really take a plot, a story that of either one of those things and put it in either places. Kurosawa did that. He this I always get this mixed up. The Seven Samurai came out first, but Kurosawa was a big fan of American Westerns and wanted to create a movie that was like one. And so he did the Seven Samurai, which is during the Japanese medieval era. Well, then, and that's a great movie. And then they did an American Western version called The Magnificent Seven, and both of them are great films and very well known and very famous. But they're the same story. And by the way, that, you know, that Magnificent Seven is that story's been done time and time again. I've seen I think Lou Ferrigno did a like a Greek or a Roman gladiator version, the Seven Gladiators. I think the recent Netflix films, was it Rebel Moon, which I've heard that is also kind of a take on the Seven Samurai story. But this idea has been used a lot where, you know, little villages being picked on by the bad guys. And so there's like a collecting of warriors, you know, all of them eccentric and having their own personality ticks, and then together they're going to fight off the bad guy. So what I'm trying to say is that you can take any of these plots and you can put them in different times. You can put them in space, you can put them in ancient Rome, you can put them in the Wild West, you can put them in medieval Britain, and it still works. So I was very interested in reading it. And then I noticed that Matthew did kind of the same thing that I'm doing, is that in order for him to write a very American Western, he made his protagonist an Englishman. And so you're seeing the Wild West through an Englishman's eyes, which is kind of a proxy for Matthew himself. And I've done the same thing. Like The Prussian Prince is about the Austro-Prussian War, but it's an American Civil War veteran who gets tangled up into it. So everything that's foreign to me about Austria and Bohemia and Prussia is also foreign to my character. And I think that's a very interesting way. And I see a lot of guys doing it. Like Ethan Bale's novel is about a knight from England going to Venice and going on an adventure in Venice. And once again, it's kind of a stranger in a strange land. So anyway, a week from, let's see, let me look, I think a week from this Friday. So it should come out, I think the 24th. And of course, when it does come out, I'm going to put, I mean, this is all part of my marketing scheme. So I've been hinting at that I might be on the show. I just haven't named it. And then after they gave me the thumbs up, I put out that video of me playing my metal fiddle, as Lloyd calls it, and announcing I'm going to be on the show. So this is the next part of me kind of building up that by doing my own live stream. You know, I do a live stream usually once a week, and I'm still going to do it. I got a 2-star review not too long ago, but it was a very interesting review, and so I wanted to talk about it because there were actually more compliments in it than there were critiques, which I thought was interesting. And it's fun to take something like that take a lemon and make lemonade out of it. So how I used a 2-star review in my marketing, and I think it worked out pretty well actually. So we're probably gonna, unless something else comes up, I'm gonna circle back to that topic. That's probably what we'll talk about next week. What else is going on? Oh, let me just show you a couple things that I have set up here. So for example, let's look at some more, since they've done a great favor to me of helping me promote myself to their audience. This is great. So this is Stephen and Matthew here, and they have a book out, and they were teasing me because it's got almost the same title as my book. I got a very similar book that is the same thing: Tips for Writing, Publishing, and Marketing Your Novel. I can't remember what mine's called, but mine's something like How to Write, Publish, and Market Your Novel. Theirs is, well, you can get it for $3.72. I think I might pick it up at some point. I want to read Matthew or Cohen's, this one right here, Amazon Ads. That's my next industry book that I want to read about, how to, but yeah, this is I think this is well worth your while. How many pages is it? It is 91 pages, so it's twice as long as mine. But that's their offer. It's the first thing they put out together. I highly recommend it because these guys know what they're talking about. I listen to their podcasts all the time. Here's Matthew Harvey. Let me make sure that this is tracked. Yeah, good. There's Matthew Harvey. He's got, I think, about 12 books out now. And The Shadows of the Slain, is that new? Oh, it's up for pre-order. God, he's a busy man. I mean, he is a really prolific writer. But you can see all his books here. Yeah, Shadows of the Slain. So that must be the Bernicia Chronicles, the next one in that. And here's the Rock Paper Scissors. Okay, that's interesting. So he co-wrote that, but it's still on his author page. And we're going to look at Stevens as well. This is the one that I just read and reviewed. So this was fun. I told him I was interested in it, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'll send you an ARC copy, which is an advanced reader copy." And I was like, "Yeah, great." And in return, I wrote a review and I put it out everywhere. And once this comes out, I'm not able to do it now, but once it comes out in July, I'll be able to add my my customer review there. But yeah, this is very good. If you want to see what a guy who normally writes Sword and Shield does with the Western, there you go. And of course, he's got the Wolf of Wessex, the Bernicia Chronicles, and a Time for Swords series. So the other guy, let's see if we can backtrack here, is Stephen A. McKay. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I think I've actually heard him correct people. Because I want to say, I'm a dumb American, so I want to say Stephen A. McKay. But it's not McKay, it's McKay. Because I think that Y is a sharper I sound. So it's McKay. So this is, I need to read this. Wow, it's only $1.99 now. Yeah, this is The Heathen Horde. So Stephen is a very interesting story. He was 100% independent. Everything that he had published so far had been an independent published. And he has been very successful at it. Huge readership. People gobble it up. Canelo came, I think he did a review for somebody, and Canelo, for a Canelo writer, Stephen's writing for Canelo, and Matthew writes for Head of Aries, and I think there's another name. There's I think Head of Aries is a subset of the larger publishing. But anyway, so I want to read this as well, The Heathen Horde. This is Stephen's latest novel. and this is his first as a traditionally published. So this publisher sought him out, said, "Hey, we really like your stuff. We would like you to write one for us. And what do you got?" And Stephen said, "Well, how about a book about Alfred the Great?" And they're like, "Let's do it." So he put this one out. Look at that, 316 ratings, sitting at a 4.4. It's doing very well. And he, you know what? I'm just gonna bam. Look at this live. I'm buying it. It's gonna be a while before I read it because I got a long list, including another one of his books. But and then the next one's coming out, Sword of the Saxons. When is Sword of the Saxons coming out? Let's see here. Hope I didn't just buy that too. Wow, that's also coming out on July 4th. That's right. I've heard them joke about that. So they both have books coming out on July 4th. Sword of the Saxons is coming out July 4th. That'll be the next one in this series. So he's got a trilogy. And then after the trilogy, I don't know. I've heard him talk about, I don't know if he's going to have another contract to do more with Canelo or if he's going to go on to his go back to his own series. Okay, let's hear what Lloyd says. I've always wondered why they used the term samurai in that movie when they weren't samurai. They were Ronin. Am I wrong in this? Partially. Ronins are samurai. What a Ronin is a samurai without lord. So most samurais are what do you call it? Bondsmen. They're bonded to they're sworn loyalty to a dynamo, to a warlord, and just like in the European model, where knights are usually sworn to a certain warlord, whether that warlord is a king or a duke or an earl or a count or whatever that nobleman may be. It's the same with samurai. Samurai is basically just an aristocrat, like a warrior aristocrat. Ronins are samurais, so they're you got to be born. You can't become a samurai. You can be a trained warrior and a soldier, but samurai, you have to be. It's nobility. It's a knighthood. And Ronins are samurais that don't have a master, and a lot of times it's considered shameful. Ronins in ancient Japanese culture weren't always. We romanticize them now, but because we like the idea of like the lone wolf, but there is kind of a guilt associated with being a Ronin, because being a Ronin means that your master died and you didn't die with him. Quite famously, Miyamoto Musashi was a Ronin, who became such a good swordsman that he stopped using swords and just used wooden sticks for the rest of his life, because he'd just instantly kill every man who came and challenged him. So, but the other thing is, I didn't. It's been so long since I watched The Seven Samurai. But yeah, I always suppose they are Ronins because most samurais are bounded to how do I move that to a warlord. So what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I was waiting for this because when this first came out, it was $5.99. So they dropped the price now to try to get people to read it before the next one comes out. So that's what's going on there. So that's those two guys. And then what's going on with me? All right, so I have a new book out. And that book is, let's see if it pops up here, down here. Yeah, here I am, The Prussian Prince. And I wonder if they're still calling it a new release. 10 ratings, 4.4 right now. That one's doing pretty well. So you can check that out. I'm currently writing. Let's come back here. All right, that's enough of all that. I'm currently writing my 6th novel, which is the French Fiasco. It's going to pick up. Oh God, my hair looks terrible. It's going to pick up after the Prussian Prince, and we're going to get into the Franco-Prussian War. I just finished writing chapter 8. It starts off. I mean, I always try to start every novel with like action and something very interesting. So it starts off in Mexico City, and you don't have to have read my other. No, not in Mexico City, but it starts off in Mexico. And if you've read my other novels, you'll understand why, but you don't have to have read my other novels. But it's going to bring back some characters from the previous novels and kind of tie some things together and tie up some loose ends. So that is going to be a lot of fun. I'm very happy with where it's going right now. I like the plot. The original idea, I had this big idea of what the Prussian Prince was going to be. And I realized as I got into it that I couldn't go straight to the Franco-Prussian War, because the Austro-Prussian War is immediately after the Civil War. And because of the plot of the Prussian Prince, there are things that my character isn't supposed to know. And that's what kind of drives that plot. And I can't have him not know it for 5 years. So I was able to keep this thing a secret from him in the course of, I think, about a year. Well, let's see, because it picks up. It starts. The Prussian Prince starts in 1848 in Berlin during the revolutions of 48 as kind of a prologue, and then and it'll explain one of the characters that's in the trilogy of why he is the way he is, and then it picks up Carl right where we left him at the end of Blood for Blood at Nashville, and then tells a new story with him in which he comes home to find that his wife has gone back to Germany in his absence because she didn't know if he was alive or not, and went back to be with her family. So he decides to go to Germany himself and gets sucked into the Austro-Prussian War. But there are things that there's things that there's something that happens in it that he doesn't know until the end of the book. And that's kind of what drives the plot. So basically, my idea for the Prussian Prince was so big that I realized this book is going to be 500,000 words unless maybe not that much, but it's going to be a big book unless I break it into two. So I did. I found that the Prussian Prince had its own very satisfying plot, and then I could do that and then use that as a springboard for the next one. Now, every book I write as if you've never read any of my books, so that if you happen to just find book 2 or book 5 or book 3 or 4 somewhere and you haven't read all the other ones, it's okay. You can just pick up any of the books. I mean, the best way, it's like Star Wars. You can watch any of the movies out of order, but it does help to watch them in order, especially for spoilers. Okay. When is your next appearance local? I got a book you need to sign. I don't know, Lloyd. I don't mind meeting up with you at some point and signing that book. And thank you, by the way, for having a book of mine that you want signed. I haven't booked anything. I haven't been pursuing that a whole lot because I've been spending a lot of time going down to Florida and taking care of my father. So I don't have anything in the books right now. But yeah, get with me and we can figure something out, and I'd be happy to sign it. And that goes for everybody. If you live in Middle Tennessee and you want to buy a book from me, or you have a book of mine that you'd like to have signed, just send me a personal message and we'll work something out. I'm always happy to do that. So that's really what's going on with me. Like I said, I just finished chapter 8. The first big story arc of that book is done, and we're moving on to the next story arc. I just finished the Battle of Saarbrücken, and the next arc is going to take us all the way up into, there's another little story arc that we're going to do that is going to be kind of like the inciting incident, and then we're going to go all the way into the Battle of Sedan. And then I have a surprise that's going to happen in the third act that I think I hope a lot of people will be surprised when it happened and happy when they read it. So that's it. I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna try to mow my lawn. Like I said, I made a dash back to Nashville while my father's in the hospital, because all I'm gonna do is sit around his pool and eat his food for a week while he's, there's nothing I can do. I'm there when he's home, so I can, help him get in and out of his chair and into a wheelchair and help him use the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. But while he's in the hospital and going through rehab, there's not a whole lot I can do other than come back and try to put my life back together. But as soon as I find out when he is going to be out of the hospital, he's going to be discharged from the hospital, sent to rehab, and he's only willing to do a week worth of rehab. So as soon as I get a day when he's coming home, then I'm going to be down in Florida the day before, so I can take him home, lift him out of the wheelchair and, get him settled in his chair and pour him a scotch and watch some more baseball games with the old man, the Baron von Engdahl. He's a great guy. Everything that makes me a man, I learned from him, and I'm quite grateful for him for that. So hopefully he's going to hang on. He's had a rough go of it in the last few years, say the least. But anyway, I'm going to leave you guys. I love you. If you have an author out there that you like, it may not even be me. Make sure you give that author 5-star reviews on Amazon for sure, and on Goodreads. Even if it's just the stars, we're grateful for the stars. We are all made of stars, and if you can write a couple nice words as well. We get not a lot, but we get bad reviews over dumb things that, we don't really deserve a bad review. So that kind of helps balance it out. I only get 5-star reviews. If I don't like it, I'm just not going to review. If I don't like it and I don't want to admit, I might give 5 stars and not write anything, so I don't put my name next to it. But I'm never going to give a living author anything less than a 5-star. I either like it or I don't. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. I love you guys, and I'll probably be on next Sunday, and we'll talk about that 2-star review. I think that's what I'm going to do. Unless something pops up between there, we're going to talk about that 2-star review that I got, because I think it's kind of interesting. All right. See you guys later.